Your synthesis stuff from yesterday, we are going to go over, so that sheet and stuff you're going to want to take out. But just going over a few things before we get into that, because there's a little bit of confusion this morning. So to clarify, your independent reading journal, you have to submit by tomorrow night at 11:59. It's not tonight at 11:59. And you don't have to wait until 11:59. I'm not making Jack stay up until then to submit his essay, but you have until tomorrow night to submit. Couple of the guidelines just to keep in mind, at least 500 words. You got 4 citations coming from the book, 2 of which would be direct quotes. You have your works cited page. Make sure you stay in the to-be verb guidelines, so intro, conclusion, first, last sentence, and body paragraphs. You wouldn't have any of them there. The one you're doing for tomorrow is a DRQ. If there's a concern that I would have going in, it might be that people forget to identify whether they're defending, refuting, or qualifying something. So if you're reading, I don't know, The Great Gatsby, you wouldn't just go, Fitzgerald argues that Fitzgerald argues that people don't properly judge one another. You would do a statement like Fitzgerald correctly argues that people don't properly, or incorrectly. I need some kind of word that's going to let me know if Abby's defending, refuting, or qualifying. So do make sure you include some kind of term in there where it's clear what you're doing with that. You don't have to worry about imagery, diction, details, figure of language, any of that kind of stuff. You're just explaining whether you agree or disagree with an argument. And remember, if there's not an author's viewpoint that you want to defend, refute, but you want to go with something a character does, that is perfectly fine. So you can argue Winston stupidly, something that lets me know that you want to refute again. The argument that you pick, because journal number 2 is rhetorical analysis, the argument that you pick for journal 1 doesn't mean you're going to use that same argument for journal 2. You can, but it doesn't mean you have to use it. Anybody got any questions, concerns about what's going on for that journal? As Abby asked earlier, paper copy, I don't think it would just be the one that's going to get submitted online. Make sure the works cited page is attached to it so you get the full credit for that one. You submit that tomorrow. I'm hoping by next Wednesday, Thursday at the latest, turn around so that you would be able to get that journal back. And so if there was anything that you needed to know before you submitted the next one, next week for journal number 2, you already have that information ready to go. Right? Next week you got 5 days. I just realized that you don't have school on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. I thought that was a 3-day week. That's a 2-day week. Which means Lexi won't show up on Tuesday, so it'll be a 1-day week for her.
Might as well
So you got Monday off, so terrible. Any what? Home. Any questions about journal? All right. For your literary term quiz, you had one yesterday. I just wanted to clarify for next week's. You start with diction, and then it's going through types of essay. So that's where narrative shows up. So we had that with the round character for the second one. You're not going D through N, but you're going through different types of essay, and so that's why it's taking you on to that next page for narrative. Your quizzes, except for Lincoln and Rose, obviously, since they just took it, I put them in the Power School pass period, so they would be in there tomorrow. I'll probably pass them back and stuff. Bless you. Keep going. I like fly all over your shake man's hand.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
Okay. We could shake hands in our hands with something.
Yo.
Yeah, that's gross. It is. So that'll be for next week, just to make sure you're good with how that stuff goes. All right. So the stuff you got yesterday, you were going to get whether I was here or not. The whole plan is not to give you another essay that you have to do, because we're not going to be writing the presidential synthesis essay. What I wanted to do for this week was kind of do one together as a class, go through the brainstorming of how a synthesis essay would work, so that next week, when you're able to start working on your own synthesis essay, the one about disobedience, helping with social progress, human progress, where you have Thoreau, Wollstonecraft, King, all those kinds of things, that you're a little bit more familiar with the process, how to set up an argument. So that's the reason I'm going through the presidential one. The the outline that you were doing yesterday, we're gonna start going over some parts of it and whatnot. But again, we're not turning it into a formal essay assignment where you gotta worry about how is this one gonna ultimately take shape. Next week though, remember, you have laptops in class all week. And so the hope for next week is you're able to really start putting together that synthesis essay, dealing with the big packets that you have. But we want to try to keep some common mistakes, issues from popping up by practicing one with the presidential elections and TV, so that you're in a good spot moving forward for next week. All right. So, positive, negative, TV's impact, presidential elections. What do you think? What were some arguments that people were coming up with so far as thesis statement position? There's a positive, negative impact to TV. And then, of course, reasons behind that positive, negative impact. What did you come up with?
I said that
Why?
because like with the real Clinton thing, it was like more about his personality.
Well, don't worry about the sources yet. So what, like, does it place too much emphasis on personality? At the expense of what? Like, what should we be worried more about?
Like the issues being
Okay, so negative influence because personality ends up having more of an impact than knowledge or what, like, actual plans are going to be political. Okay. Image, personality becomes more important, or at least equal to political issues. Okay. What else? For a negative, or you can look at positive impacts. Because some people could take that idea and go, I want to know the personality of who the president is going to be, and TV helps me do that.
I said it was negative, and I said that it distorts like the truth and it adds bias in people who broadcast it.
Okay. So, bias and then distorts. And you said the bias of the people who broadcast it. So are you thinking networks? I think I know what you're going to say, but any examples?
I was gonna say like when they were talking about the like Walter Cronkite thing, like
Okay.
he thought that the war was hopeless, the American people would think so too.
Any biases you'd see in today's media?
Just the election. Like I think a lot of like different news stations are either split liberal or conservative, so they give different.
And generally, when we go with that, what two networks come up most often as being like biased with? You hear Fox, which is going more conservative, and then CNN people will argue that is going to be a little bit more liberal. So Fox Republican, CNN Democrat. Tuesday night, I could not sleep. Nothing to do with election, totally to do with all this gook in my head that Luke and I are coughing at one another and then shaking hands. So, since there wasn't anything on TV Tuesday night, I went downstairs to turn on the TV. I was flipping back and forth between two stations. Guess which two? Fox and CNN. And this was becoming now the entertainment aspect of what was going on. This was before Florida had been declared for Trump. Okay, so it was still close, too close to call. They're not quite sure yet where it's going to go. I'm watching CNN, and they're zeroing in on specific counties. And for most of the election, rural areas were going in favor of Trump, where urban, in some cases suburban, were going more with Clinton. So at this point, I think Trump had like a 70,000 vote lead in Florida. But they were zooming in on like Miami, Dade County, Tampa Bay, all these places within Florida that are blue counties because they were going more for Clinton. And on CNN, they were emphasizing there's only 15%, 25% of the precinct yet coming in from these counties. So Clinton probably will be able to make up that difference. Then I switch over to Fox, and what are they looking at? He's got this lead in Florida. How about that? Let's see if it continues to expand. There was no reference whatever about the precincts, still waiting to come in from the urban counties. Switch back over to CNN a little bit later. Trump's lead is expanding. He's getting up to like 110,000, but they're still focusing in on where Clinton is ahead, and we're still waiting for more votes to come in. So it wasn't, at no point did one network go from when I was watching Trump should win, Clinton should win, but CNN was still looking at it more of an optimistic view that Clinton would be able to make up the deficit, whereas Fox was looking at it more as he's winning and that lead is getting larger. So if you were watching it carefully, yeah, you could certainly still see a bias starting to come in. And then mention that we have the Cronkite source, which I think is source E, taking a look at that, do certain people carry a lot of weight when it comes to their opinions about political parties, individuals? Yeah, absolutely. Cronkite would be an example, and we could probably start thinking of some other examples in today's world. Anything else? Positive, negative? Impact, TV.
I said negative when I said that it can become
Sensing a trend here.
yeah, it can become too personal between like the candidate and the audience on TV.
What do you mean by too personal?
I don't know, just like oversharing with people like take it seriously.
So like too much information about? Okay, so the American public knows too much about candidates? Okay. So a personal view of candidates, and kind of similar to what Kaylee was saying before, there's too much emphasis on those issues as opposed to the political ones. Okay. Anybody have any positives?
One thing you could look at positive is that it informs the public better. Like if you ever watch some debates.
So better to have TV than no TV at all? Okay. Yeah, I didn't care. I was telling Abby. I'll check in with you in like a minute, so you can think of something else. Okay.
Well, I was towards negative, but like going off the England, a lot of people do have TVs. I think more people probably have TVs than radios.
Yeah.
So like it's widespread, like everybody can get that information.
So it's more accessible than well, let me write this down first. Writing and speaking is difficult. This prompt is like 2005. Certainly, if we were to rewrite it for like 2016, we might even take television out and substitute, social media, just mass media in general, because that would allow it to be TV, internet, and a whole bunch of other things. So you could argue that maybe TV's impact has lessened since 2005 because it's been replaced by other things which are much more accessible. But you're absolutely right. Compared to like 1948 or so, the radio would have been the main way, newspaper, of people getting that information. TV, internet, Twitter has certainly kind of started to replace that. So you are able to broaden out and hit some people. Jack?
This is more like a what if, but I think if you take away TV, then people will be much less informed, which kind of shows like its importance in this information in general.
So you took Aiden's and you just like reversed
Yeah.
it. I had higher hopes.
Kind of going off what Abby was saying about how it's more accessible, it's just that it aligns with the modern culture. Like, I'm pretty sure everyone around here watches TV, or like you were saying, as how it has changed to social media. I'm pretty sure everybody is involved in that, and it's like like back in the day, they would use newspapers or whatever to spread information, but just the technology
So-
it's
So it could kind of depend on what you're looking at as being better. It's a better way to inform people because we all have access to it and use it. You could argue, and some folks are going, well, I might be negative with it. It might not better inform the public in the sense of the quality of the information that's coming out to them, or you could argue that it does. but it certainly broadens and reaches those people where it becomes more accessible than some of those other forms of radio. Newspaper subscriptions have certainly gone down over the course of the year. So if you are going to keep touch with people, this is the way that you have to do it. Anything else? Jordan?
Also, if you could like increase the number of people who actually go out and vote, because it'll with like the younger generation, since they do have like more access to the information, like because it's on social media, and they're more likely to get involved.
So not so much worried about the quality of the information or the viewpoint that's getting shared. Whether, yes, there might be biases. Maybe people start to look at candidates in ways that we would rather not, but you are getting a more active citizenship. A citizenry group of people are participating more so in elections because of it than otherwise would not have. How many people watched at least 10 minutes of a presidential debate this time around? It's a pretty high number. So even though people in here cannot vote, you're still watching, still kind of becoming informed somehow, some way. And so should you be able to vote, that stuff would absolutely take place. Anything else?
For negative, people could like start voting based on who they like as a person better rather than the actual ruling of the country and how the president's going to affect us in politics and other nations.
I think you said people could start. I think we've started that.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, how much so of that, and some folks would argue that's the appropriate way that you should do it. Certainly one of the ways in which Trump was able to garner so much support is not a political person, and so if people are looking to kind of change and get away from that political aspect, they want it was using the drain the swamp term when it comes to Washington. That was certainly going to work for him in order to get elected. So some people would look at that as being a positive, but still not voting maybe for the appropriate reasons behind it. So certainly, yes, this could be a positive over here. At the same time, well, is it a misinformed delegate? Is that still, would you rather have a person who's misinformed voting or not have a person vote at all? That's a whole other can of worms that debate that would be an issue. What's your least favorite part about political season?
The slander. All the signs.
That's Luke's favorite part. But majority of people, not that Luke has to be on his own island by himself all the time, you could certainly put what in the negative category? Ads. Or Luke, you can put it in the positive category. What's the problem with the ads if you don't like them?
They're too fun.
Too funny.
You're on
They try.
On all the time.
you're everywhere.
So oversaturation. They tend to be, for the most part, negative. Do you prefer negative ads, or would you rather have Trump, Clinton, whomever explaining positive things that they're going to do? The negative ones certainly have more of the entertainment aspect taking place, and depending on your viewpoints of the candidate, if you're not in favor of candidate A and there is a campaign ad against this person, you're going to be more excited about it because you never liked that person in the first place. Whereas if you are diehard for a person and there's a negative ad, then you're certainly going to be a little upset about it. Both my girls, who do they want to get elected president?
Romney.
No.
Trump.
Clinton, because she's female. That's what they had. I want a female. When it came to Senate, and Carol, we'll get to you here in a minute. When it came to the Senate, they wanted Katie McKennedy to get elected because she's female. Sadie came home yesterday from kindergarten. We're eating lunch. She's eating lunch. I'm sneezing into stuff and then patting her own back. Her hair was like sticking up. I don't know why. She was upset because Mason in her class said that Katie is a liar. She said, but I thought Tombstone was a liar. Halloween tattoo means she throws them all. And so now it was whole conversation, well, daughter, pretty much everyone in the world in politics is probably gonna lie at some point. But the whole idea that someone would say something negative about a person she did not like. Now, when it came to Donald Trump, what was her main reason for not liking Donald Trump?
Because he's not a woman.
That what? Well, that was her main reason for liking Clinton, because she's a girl. He's had 3 wives.
Oh.
She
After
did.
2, it's you.
She did not like that. Now, she doesn't certainly understand divorce and all that kind of stuff in the first place, and I don't know if she realized that he's not married to 3 people all at the same time or whatnot. But certainly aspects about Trump, viewpoints towards women has certainly been a main element that people have been throwing out there. That was certainly what she was latching onto. So a lot of her reasons for wanting someone, and keep in mind, we're dealing with a 5-year-old here, is going to be, I'm going to vote for someone based on gender or based on image, and I'm going to not vote, if I could, on someone based on the negative viewpoints that have been presented, not so much when it comes to policy or anything. Carol?
I guess like whenever I see like a negative, politics ad, I never believe it because it's so biased that I feel like they've lost all of their credibility. So it's like I don't really know. Like I almost never actually think that what they're throwing out there is actually true, or that it's very controversial.
Sure. You basically what can you end up believing in with campaign ads? You'll usually get a soundbite of something that a person has said, or something that comes up in print. Very rarely do you get the surrounding context of it. So is it just simply this was the agenda, this was the intent of it, or is it being skewed to kind of fit the argument that the other side wants it to be, which is probably more accurate than not. And things are certainly going to get skewed. But if it makes Jack go, ooh, I don't like that person, not voting for him, then ultimately it was probably effective for him or her. Anything else that's what written on paper, and I don't know if anyone put ads so far as a negative, but thinking about it now, not just so far as the networks, but any other positives or negatives that have taken place because of TV from ideas that are separate from positions that you already put down on that paper yesterday. Any new ideas that's not on that paper? Based on this, then it looks like if we were to do an essay, majority of us are going to be taking the negative viewpoint. Abby, were you going negative? Was that your initial? Can you, and I'm not trying to get you to change your position, can you see anything that we would lose if, like, say we took TV out? So we put a ban on political ads. We did not have Fox News, CNN, any of the networks showing political issues. Is there anything that we would miss out on if TV was completely taken away that would be beneficial for us?
I feel like if TV was taken away, the only people who would be involved in politics would be the people who actually care about it and would actually go out of their way to look into newspapers and figure out how the parties design.
So you're dealing with a smaller group of people. You folks, there's not anyone in here besides me who could vote on Tuesday. Fair number of you, though, I would probably consider as being interested in politics or concerned about it. Why? What got you interested? What got you started?
Well, partially just from hearing about it, but also just it's gonna affect this in the next election.
Okay. So, oops, I don't want to go there yet. Next time around, assuming Donald Trump is going to run again, you would have the ability to vote for him or to vote for somebody else. So you're still going to be connected to this. You're right in the sense that you can't get away from it. If you're alive right now, whether you're 5, 17, 37, certainly that presidential election aspects are going to be absolutely everywhere. Where can you get your political news from, TV-wise? Like networks or whatnot? Where are places that you can get news?
Fox, CNN, ABC.
was the last one you said?
CNBC.
CBS, BBC. Some people go to PBS. Some people do BBC. Anyplace else? Not that we have to list C-SPAN 1, 2, and 3, although we can. I bet you get a lot of political ideas from other places besides there.
There's like ads on basically every channel. Like, even on the kids channels.
Okay. So ads everywhere. Anyplace else?
When you go on the computer, you go on Google, you see an ad. You go on YouTube, you get a political ad before you.
Okay. And not worried about ads, but like getting information or specific viewpoints. So not from a commercial, because commercial, C-SPAN's not going to have a commercial, but NBC, CBS, PBS, Fox is all going to have commercials. They could be the same. Any other places, personalities where you get political information,
Non-mainstream,
such as?
like Vice News.
Okay.
It's just like, there's just a whole bunch of small.
Like your parents or other people in
Yeah, I'm still thinking TV though.
your life.
But you're right. I mean, certainly there's going to be political. I mean, why do most people vote the way that they do? Because that's the way that you were brought up. Jordan, and then,
Shows they have like satire.
okay, any come to mind?
Like SNL.
Used to be, I guess it still runs, but with Jon Stewart, Comedy Central has The Daily Show. Some people would argue HBO, or we'll watch them on YouTube. Thinking of a specific person. J.O. Bill Maher.
Yeah.
I know he had an HBO. I don't know if he's still on HBO or not. And even when you look at networks, 'cause here we're generally thinking of news, but from a network standpoint, around 11:30 after the nightly news, what personalities start to show up? Jimmy Fallon. Still, we'll go with political. The more political of the night show, at least traditionally, wouldn't be Fallon, but would be, because Fallon's what, NBC? Over on CBS. No. Unless he's wearing a wig. I'll still put down Fallon, because you're right, he would come up, but you got Colbert over on CBS, who used to be you had Colbert Report on Comedy Central, and then before that he was with The Daily Show. Now, this whole area here, this demographic, who's watching these shows?
Less interested, probably. Ones that aren't interested in politics.
Yeah, if you're going for the straight political news, you probably got a much better chance that you're going to watch PBS. Like my mom is going to get her news more likely from PBS than she is going to watch Jimmy Fallon at night. What age group probably is going to tap into these sources more so than anyone else? Yeah, probably college. Certainly could be high school, but you're going to be going for a younger generation. You could argue that this has had a positive impact because now Abby is more likely to get politically involved because there's an entertainment aspect to it. You could certainly still argue the opposite has taken place, where now when she's watching political things, skits on Saturday Night Live, you're using that to make your decision, where there's a difference between entertainment and actual information, content that you're trying to go with. You could argue that more emphasis is placed on viewership than it is on actually properly informing people, so it might not work. None of these things make its way, into the sources that you have in that A through F. But certainly, you still have some ways in which TV can impact presidential elections. In some cases, if you are getting made fun of on Saturday Night Live, what does that mean for you? Some folks are going to look at it as being, this is terrible because I'm being made fun of. Other folks are going to go, the only reason I'm going to get brought up on Saturday Night Live is if I'm if I make fun of someone on Saturday Night Live and nobody knows who the person is, the joke's not going to work. If I make fun of a candidate on Saturday Night Live, I have to make fun of somebody who people know. So if I'm getting made fun of on there, that means I am established. That means people probably have a viewpoint. No, I might not like the way in which I'm being, brought up. Although, what do a lot of candidates now start to do? They're going to make the circuit on these shows. Sarah Palin, and if you showed a person a picture of Tina Fey and Sarah Palin and said which is which, a lot of people wouldn't be able to tell the difference. But what does she then do? She goes on to host Saturday Night Live. A lot of political figures go on to the networks. And certainly you had a reference with that with Source B when it comes to Bill Clinton and MTV generation, people getting more active. But TV maybe does allow for some accessibility to the candidates so that you do become a little bit more knowledgeable about them. Can you think of anybody, so past presidents, who would not have been elected if they were around in a TV era? Think about that while I answer the phone. Who would not be elected if they were around in a TV era? Mr. Payne? Okay. I would think so, but I'm not sure. Off the top of my head, I don't know. Okay. Sure. Okay. All right. Yep. Bye. Who doesn't get elected if there's TV cameras? I can think of at least 3 in my mind. Doesn't mean rightfully. No. Why not? I think Madison's even shorter. I want to say Madison's the shortest president. He's like 5'3" or something. Adams and Jefferson in a TV era would be must-see TV. I mean, you got 2 people who really did not like one another. Their goal in life was to outlive each other. Of course, they die on the same day. And keep in mind, how did you become vice president in those days? You lost the election. So if we were doing this by, yesteryear standards, Trump is president, Clinton is VP. So you're going Adams based on looks. Can you think of anyone else based on looks? I don't think Lincoln gets elected.
Wait, who did he run against?
Oh yeah, that one girl was like, you're really ugly.
Buchanan was incumbent, only president of PA. Who he runs against second term? I don't recall. Lincoln, we know is going to be exceptionally tall. He's the tallest president, like 6'4". Very lengthy, gangly. People might not look at him and go, "That's the kind of image that I would expect to lead." 1930s. If television cameras are around, or at least used more frequently, I don't believe this person gets reelected multiple times. FDR has polio, is in a wheelchair. And certainly when it came to news conferences and things like that, that was hidden as much as possible. And I think there would probably be some others that you could look at as well. So you could argue certainly that TV has had that negative impact where maybe we do put image more highly than we should with content. It's not just coming up with the source material. Like if a person were to argue about image, I would hope that they're not simply going to go Kennedy, Nixon. because of that getting mentioned within the sources. The biggest issue that's going to take place with any kind of synthesis essay, and this is where folks really run into some problems, are if their whole argument is based around what the source has to say. If they use Nixon and Kennedy as an example of image, the reader's going to look at it and go, well, you're basically doing what to that source? You're summarizing it. How can we still bring in image content within today's world? When people say Trump, but what do we mean by that? Or Clinton? Or
You could say like people criticize like him for being orange or something. Being honest.
okay, so yeah, make up the presentation.
Yeah.
His hair gets mentioned probably more so than anything else when it comes to physical characteristics. So that could be something. Certainly with Clinton, one of the conspiracy theories out there was health. And so people would focus in on a microphone that's probably on her back during the debate, and people going, what kind of medical device is that she's going to keel over at any given point? So does it allow for us to focus on things that maybe might not be as important? Sure it can. But for us to simply go, all right, here's why this is important. Take a look at Nixon and Kennedy. If someone were to simply just go into that argument, they're not going to be going very far because you're not synthesizing, you're not blending in the sources. Person earlier was talking about watching McCain-Pence, the vice presidential debates, and they were watching it and they liked the way that Pence presented himself better. But when they thought about, okay, what did they really just say, they didn't actually agree with anything that candidate had said, but they liked the presentation, which was making them side. That's synthesizing because now you're kind of comparing it to what happened with Kennedy and Nixon to a personal experience, an outside example that you had. If you were looking at this and then getting into the whole image idea of what we were just saying with Adams, Lincoln, FDR, now you have synthesis taking place. Source B brings in Clinton, and certainly talking about the MTV generation, that's a perfect opportunity to get more into now these examples down here, Saturday Night Live, Daily Show, John Oliver, Bill Maher, and whatnot, because now you're blending in your own personal examples with what's coming in from the source material. So it's not just picking the sources that are important, and like Walter Cronkite got mentioned earlier, before, as to him having a powerful influence. If you thought any of these people had an exceptionally strong influence, that would be a connection that you could make. So it's presenting the source material in the sense that these are the main points that the source material is making, but here's why it works, because you're able to then explain it using your own examples going along. If you simply take information from the sources and you allow that to become your argument, you can't get above a 4 because you're not synthesizing. To synthesize is to blend, is to incorporate, is to bring in the sources along with your own ideas. And again, that's why it's critical that you come up with your position first. Don't allow the sources to dictate the position you take, because if you do that, you're probably just going to summarize them a little more. So tomorrow we're going to take a look specifically at the sources. Which sources, like when you were supposed to list 4, do you think you would use, how, why? And it's not just what's the information from the source, but what in today's world or from history could you mix and match with it that would allow for a more complete presentation of it. But if you summarize the sources, it could be written extremely well. It can't get above a 4 because you're not truly synthesizing. Make sure that's being taken care of.